Welcome to Lesson 2 of Unit 1, Rational Numbers, Powers, and Polynomials. Today we're just going to review adding and subtracting fractions, as this is a really important concept. It's going to come up over and over again throughout the unit, and it's a great place to start with this topic. So we're going to start with some of the basic terminology of fractions. So when you have a fraction, you have the number on top, and that's called the numerator. Okay? The number on the bottom is called the denominator. Now those two terms I'm going to use talking about fractions pretty much consistently for the next couple lessons. So they're terms you do need to be familiar with. Okay? So when we're adding and subtracting fractions, you have to have the same denominator. Okay, I can't, for example, add a half and a quarter without understanding that a half is actually 2 quarters. And so then in the end, I'm going to have 3 quarters. So when we get into more complex fractions that we can't visualize in our head, we have a system of creating common denominators that we can use that will make our equation solving much more effective. So in order to add and subtract fractions, you must have common denominators. Okay? Means the number on the bottom has to be the same. And so what you're going to do is create equivalent fractions. Now equivalent means exactly the same. All right, so when I say we have a common denominator, it means that the number on the bottom is the same. When I say I'm creating an equivalent fraction, I'm creating a fraction that's the exact same proportion as the original fraction. So let's start with a simple fraction, 1/2, or 1/2. And let's think of another equivalent fraction. So that's a fraction that's exactly the same size as 1/2. So maybe 3/6. 3/6 is the same as 1/2. And mathematically, I can show that by reducing the 3/6 to 1/2. If I divide the top and the bottom by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2, showing that 3/6 is equal to 1/2. So that when we are adding and subtracting, we use equivalent fractions to get common denominators. And the most useful number when we're creating those common denominators is going to be the LCM. Now the LCM stands for the lowest common multiple. Okay? And the lowest common multiple is the lowest value that all of the numbers will share. So for example, if we're looking for the LCM of 2 and 3, my apologies, the lowest common multiple of 2 and 3, I'm going to go through the multiples of 2. So I'm going to say, okay, the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8. And the multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12. And what do I find here? The lowest number they both have in common is 6. So the lowest common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. So if I was working with fractions that had 2 and 3 on the bottom, otherwise known as the denominators, I would want to make equivalent fractions that have 6 as the denominator. So let's try some practice questions here. Okay, so the very first one we're going to start with is this 1/6 plus 2/3. Now, 3 goes into 6, so 6 is actually going to be the LCM. So I'll write that here, LCM equals 6. So do I have to change this fraction at all? No, the denominator's already 6, so it's going to stay 1/6. And I want to make the next fraction have a denominator of 6 as well. So I have to make it an equivalent fraction, a fraction that is the exact same proportion as 2/3. So I do this by asking myself, how did I turn 3 into 6? What did I do to turn 3 into 6? I multiplied 3 by 2. So I'm going to say, okay, I multiplied 3 by 2. And then I have to do the same thing to the top to keep the proportion the same. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So that's how I get my equivalent fraction. Okay? So on our next line, we know the denominators are the same, so they're going to stay the same. All right? It's going to stay 6. And we just add or subtract the numerators. That's the fill-in for the blank up there. Once you've created your common denominators with your equivalent fractions, you don't change the denominator anymore. You only change the numerator. So we're going to have 5 over 6 as the answer. That's our final answer. Let's try another one. This one's a subtraction question, and you'll notice the denominators are 2 and 3. Now, we've already talked about what the lowest common multiple of 2 and 3 is, and that's going to be 6. I'm going to write that over here. My LCM is 6. So I'm going to rewrite this as a fraction over 6 minus a fraction over 6. Now, let's think about making those equivalent fractions. So what did I do to get 2 to be 6? I multiplied it by 3. So I have to multiply the top by 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. The 3 was multiplied by 2, multiply the top by 2, and I'm going to get 2 over 6. Those are my equivalent fractions. Now I perform my addition or subtraction, remembering that I leave the denominator the same once I've created that common denominator. So it's going to stay 6 on the bottom, and 3 minus 2 is 1. And that's my final answer for that question. So let's try one more. This one's an addition question, but it has a different set of denominators. So let's think about how to do the LCM. We've got 3 and 10. So let's go 3, 6, 9, 12, and that's going to continue all the way up to 30, which is 3 times 10. We've got 10, which will be 10, 20, 30. Okay, so that's going to be your lowest common multiple, which will be your common denominator. You can work the other way around if it's too long to think this way. Start with your largest number and go through the multiples of your largest number and ask yourself, can you divide the smaller one into it? So I say 10. Can I divide 10 by 3? No, I can't. Can I divide 20 by 3? No, I can't. Can I divide 30 by 3? Yes, I can. That's my lowest common multiple. So I know we're going to get 2 fractions over 30. So let's make those equivalent fractions. Okay, I multiplied 3 by 10. I'm going to multiply 2 by 10 and get 20. Make that bigger by mistake. 10 by 3, 7 by 3, I get 21. Now I perform the rest of my addition, remembering the denominator is going to stay the same. 20 plus 21 is 41. And at this point, I would say you're finished this question, except that you must have them reduced into their simplest form. In lessons to come, we're going to learn how to convert back and forth between what are called mixed numbers and improper fractions. If you don't know how to do that right now, that's fine. If you do, you'll know that the final answer in this question would be 1 and 11/30ths. But remember, that's something we're going to learn in the next lesson.